Hey there, welcome back to the channel. So far, all of the relaxing classical music I've discussed on this channel has been piano pieces, and that's just been a coincidence. But there's a ton of other literature out there by other instruments, so today we're going over the top 5 most relaxing pieces of classical music for the violin. Hey everyone, my name is Matthew, and welcome to Calm Insomniac, where we're a community of people trying to get a better night's sleep. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Before we get into the specific pieces, there are a few things that we need to address. First, let's remind ourselves of the 4 criteria we look for in relaxing classical music, and that is we want music that is instrumental only, repetitive, in a simple form, and has a consistent, calm tempo. If you want to learn more about these criteria, then I suggest you watch this video over here. And remember that these are just guidelines and not strict rules. And this brings me to my next point, which is music is subjective. Whenever I'm discussing music with you or looking through music myself, I'm always keeping in mind those 4 criteria because I want to keep our discussions as fact-based as possible. However, from there, the music I choose to share with you is based on my opinion of what is relaxing to me. Your interpretation of relaxing might be different than mine, and that's okay. But we need to remember that music is subjective, and I do my very best to make sure I'm picking music that is as widely acceptable and relaxing to the most amount of people, but there still is a personal element to it, so just consider these as guidelines, and you might have something different that you think is more relaxing. And the last thing I want to address before getting into the specific pieces is there is just so much violin literature out there that for this list I had to limit the choices somehow. So when picking the pieces, I chose to omit any music by Bach as well as any violin concerti, and that was basically just to limit my choices, and also both of those categories deserve their own respective list. So with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's now get into the top 5 most relaxing violin pieces in no particular order. Let's start with number 1, which is Massenet's Meditation from Thais. This is arguably the most recognizable piece on this list, and is also one of the most popular encore pieces for world-class soloists to perform. Soloists such as Anne-Sophie Mutter, Itzhak Perlman, and Maxim Vengerov have all performed this piece. Massenet was a French composer who is known for his operas, and Thais is one of his operas, and it premiered in 1894. The Meditation is an instrumental entr'acte, or music between the scenes, that takes place in the opera's second act. The Meditation is written for a solo violin and orchestral accompaniment, and when it's performed in an opera setting, the concertmaster will play the solo, but when it's done in a concert setting, then the invited guest soloist will be the one to play it. The piece is essentially in ABA form, and that's a form we've discussed several times, so I won't go into too much detail today. The orchestral accompaniment is really simple and very calm, and the harps are playing a background 8th note rhythm, which is very soothing and has a real relaxing effect to it, and harps have often been used to lull people to sleep. A really cool thing to mention about this piece is its tempo marking of andante religioso. That tempo marking definitely indicates a slow tempo, but I think it also indicates a religious aspect to the music. Now that does relate to the story of the opera, but I think we're supposed to play this piece with a religious or prayerful attitude toward it. The way most soloists play this piece is overly romantic, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful piece, but the religious or plaintive quality about it isn't explored enough, and that's something that I think should be explored more. The second piece on our list is Elgar's Salut d'amour. This piece was written in 1888 and was originally written for violin and piano, and Elgar wrote it as an engagement present to his future wife. Edward Elgar was a British composer who is most known today for his Pomp and Circumstance March, which is played at almost every graduation or commencement ceremony. Salut d'Amour is also one of Elgar's most well-known pieces, and the French title is not original. That was a change made by the publisher. Elgar originally gave it a German title, Liebesgruß, which means love's greeting. This piece is also essentially in ABA form, though really it's a song, and that's exemplified by how simple the piece is. The piano part behaves in a similar way to Brahms' Lullaby, where it's an accompaniment that is syncopated, and that helps give it a rocking feel. When you listen to a really good violinist perform this piece, you'll hear how sweet and endearing the quality of the piece is, and I will leave a link to one of Sarah Chang's performances, and I think you'll really like it. The third piece on this list is Mendelssohn's Violin Sonata in F minor, the first movement. This is probably the least known piece on this list, but I think it's a hidden gem. Of Mendelssohn's 3 violin sonatas, this is the only one that was published during his lifetime. Felix Mendelssohn was a German composer, and one of the reasons he's known today is because he helped revive an interest in the music of Bach. But his piano concerti, the violin concerto, his symphonies, they're all considered core standard repertoire today. Mendelssohn composed this violin sonata in 1823 when he was a teenager. So since this is such an early work, we don't have all of the qualities of a typical Mendelssohn piece, particularly its whimsy. In fact, this piece has a lot more of a Beethoven sound than it does a Mendelssohn sound. But that's not to detract from the fact that Mendelssohn wrote this as a teenager, and it's a beautiful piece. This piece is extremely rhythmically repetitive, and Mendelssohn often takes small rhythmic cells and repeats them many, many times as he develops the movement. Another technique Mendelssohn uses a lot in his melodic structure of the piece is his use of downward motion, so notes are going lower in pitch as the melody goes on. This is not a stereotypical relaxing quality to music, but in this case I think it is. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is in a minor key. I think it also helps that the piece is a relatively slow tempo for a first movement, but in general, when you listen to this piece, this cascading downward motion really is lulling and soothing. This also helps it be relaxing because we know what to expect musically, and so we're familiar with it. The fourth piece on our list is Brahms' Violin Sonata No. 3, the second movement. This is the final violin sonata Brahms wrote, and he composed it during the height of his fame, and this piece was premiered in 1888. The entire piece is a holy grail work for violinists because it's musically and technically demanding, but it's also very gorgeous. The second movement is a song, and the piano accompaniment is just that. It's an accompaniment, so they are not an equal partner with the violin. The accompaniment is often just one note per beat, and it remains simple throughout the entire movement. Something worth mentioning is that this movement is in a major key, and even though the music is extremely lyrical, it doesn't sound happy at all. It sounds melancholy or sad, and that certainly reflects a lot of Brahms' personal struggles. But we should remember that this is a good counterexample to that age-old saying, major keys are happy and minor keys are sad. This is a wonderful example of a major key sounding sad. Similar to what I suggested when listening to Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, I think approaching this piece as you're listening to it to reflect on the fact that you are letting go of the day's troubles as you begin relaxing is a good way to approach this piece. And the fifth and final piece on this list is Franck's Violin Sonata, the first movement. This piece is one of his most well-known and is often cited as one of the reasons why Franck is still considered a major composer. This sonata is also one of the most performed and recorded violin sonatas. César Franck was a composer of German and Belgian descent, though he worked most of his life in Paris. The violin sonata was composed in 1886 and is a cyclical work. As the name implies, a cyclical work has one theme or a few themes that recur continuously throughout the entire piece. So even though we're only discussing the first movement on this list, if you listen to the piece in its entirety, you will hear the same themes come back over and over again. This piece is also considered one of the greatest examples of a cyclical work. The movement, of course, has beautiful melodies, but one of the reasons this movement is so relaxing is due to its rhythmic structure, and that's something I want to break down a little bit. The movement's time signature is 9/8. Now, what is a time signature? Time signature is a marking in music that tells the performer how many beats are in a measure and what rhythm value is given one beat. 9/8 is a somewhat complicated time signature, but what we need to know about it is that it is a compound meter. Compound meters take their beats and divide them into divisions of 3. This is opposed to simple meter, which take their beats and divide them into divisions of 2. This is important for us because in a compound meter, we get a natural lilting or swaying feel. Think about this. When you listen to or dance a waltz, the waltz is divided into 3 divisions. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And even if you've never danced a waltz, you will feel this when you listen to one, and your body will naturally start swaying to that compound rhythm. So built into Franck's first movement is this natural dance-like or swaying rhythm, and this kind of motion is relaxing for us because it feels like rocking. This movement also has probably the most rhythmically active piano part, but that doesn't detract from its relaxing qualities. It's something that goes rather unnoticed, except for the pianist who has to play it, because this is a notoriously hard piano part. There we go. Those are the top 5 most relaxing violin pieces, and I want to know in the comments, what pieces for the violin do you like that are relaxing, and what did I leave out? I'm not a violinist, and even though I'm very familiar with the violin repertoire, there's a lot of music I don't know, and I could have missed something just from lack of familiarity. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Facebook and Pinterest, and check out my website, calminsomniac.com, where I have all kinds of articles on classical music, sleep health, sleep tips, and some product reviews. You can also sign up for my email list where I'll keep you updated on everything I post. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.